are several key talking points that refuse to go away in the Naruto fandom. Was Itachi always supposed to be evil? Is Talk no Jutsu a dumb ability for Naruto to have? And if Jiraiya actually fought against Kisame and Itachi at the same time, would he come out victorious? But out of all of these key topics, that last one seems to be the most hotly debated. I mean, sure, Jiraiya was powerful. He was able to defeat 4 of the Paths of Pain and Konan in the Hidden Rain by himself, but Itachi was considered an equal to Fugaku when he was 13 years old, and Kisame battled against a 7th Gate guy. Are you honestly telling me that one of the legendary Sannin in their mid-50s stood a chance against 2 of the strongest members of the Akatsuki simultaneously? Well, I mean, if we take Itachi's word for it, then yeah, that's exactly what I'm telling you, because Itachi himself says that if he and Kisame were to battle against Jiraiya, both of them would die, and that would not be a favorable outcome. But did Itachi actually mean this, or was he acting as a spy? Was he trying to deter Kisame from attacking Jiraiya and Naruto because Itachi was acting in the best interests of Konoha, of which he was still faithful to? And thus, in actuality, he didn't believe that him and Kisame would lose in combat to Jiraiya. He just didn't want Naruto and the Nine Tails falling into the hands of the Akatsuki. But which of these beliefs is correct? Was Itachi lying, or was he telling the truth? Well, it doesn't really matter, at least for today. See, because today I'm not gonna consider what Itachi said about how this fight would play out. Sure, I'm absolutely of the mindset that Itachi meant what he said about Jiraiya, as I'm not entirely sure that in the moment when Itachi said that, the Kishimoto planned for him actually being a spy in the Akatsuki. But the cool thing about all the characters involved in this fight is that we know a pretty insane amount about all 3 of them. And that's why we can use Itachi's statement as a kicking off point to talk about this hypothetical fight. We can use the information we know about Kisame, Jiraiya, and Itachi to see who would win in this actual 2v1 fight. And by using that information, we can figure out if Itachi was lying or telling the truth. And thus today I want to analyze the strength of all 3 of these combatants and break down how a fight would actually pan out if the 3 of them decided to fight to the death. That is to say, today we're talking Jiraiya versus Kisame and Itachi, so we can once and for all put this argument to bed. But before we get to putting anything to bed, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And if you're looking for one additional NC Hammer 23 video a week, you can go ahead and find my Naruto reaction series using the 4th wall link in my description below. We're on to the Forest of Death, and Orochimaru's hunting those kids. Before we get into all that, today I want to talk to you about the sponsor of today's video, DraftKings Casino. The #1 online casino experience just got better. Huff and more puff has arrived at DraftKings Casino. Packed with big wins, flying pigs, and the iconic huffing wolf, Huff and more puff has everything that players are looking for in one place. So, who's ready to blow some houses down? New players, there's never been a better time to get into DraftKings Casino, as by just simply playing $5, you get 500 spins on Huff and More Puff, getting 50 spins a day for 10 days. All you gotta do is sign up using the promo code NCHAMMER and start spinning today. Must be 21 plus, minimum $5 wager. But that's not all. Hop into all the action that DraftKings Casino has to offer, like live dealer blackjack and so much more. But what if DK Casino isn't available in your state yet? Well, no worries there. With DraftKings Daily Fantasy, you can have a shot to win huge cash prizes wherever you are. So get into the action by downloading DraftKings Casino today and sign up using my promo code NCHAMMER. DraftKings Casino. The crown is yours. So, let's start this video off by analyzing the strength of all of our hypothetical combatants, breaking them down from weakest to strongest. And therefore, as wild as this is to say, the first fighter we're going to be talking about is Kisame, who is undoubtedly by far and away the weakest fighter going into this battle. See, if you've followed my channel for any amount of time, you know that I believe Kisame is the 4th strongest member of the Akatsuki. The strongest member of the Akatsuki who doesn't have access to a legendary dojutsu. The wielder of the strongest of the 7 swords of the mist, Samehada, a character so incredibly strong that he was able to cut down the previous wielder of Samehada with just a standard katana. And mind you, that previous wielder of Samehada, who stood at almost 7 feet tall, was the only person from the previous iteration of the 7 swordsmen of the mist who was strong enough to survive the onslaught of Might Dai's 8th Gate awakening. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that Fugaku was able to battle against 8th Gate Might Dai, but he at the very least canonically was strong strong enough to survive an 8th Gate Awakening. And while there's really no reason for us to believe that Might Guy was anywhere close to Might Guy in terms of strength, as Might Guy not only displays the ability to use ninjutsu, but also becomes a Jonin, something that his father was never able to do as he himself was considered an eternal Genin. But still, we've seen what an 8th Gate Awakening does, and it's crazy. Like bend space-time and kick a hole in Jubidara crazy. Now, the reason that Kisame is able to be a wielder of Samehada is because he has one of the biggest chakra pools in the entire Naruto universe. A chakra pool so large that he's referred to as the tailless tailed beast. And the chakra pools of the tailed beast are considered to be nigh infinite. When you tie all this into the fact that Kisame also has this ridiculous chakra pool being constantly refilled by the chakra absorption ability of Samehada, it's safe to consider Kisame's chakra pool as close to infinite as basically anybody in the show, with the chakra pool and chakra longevity most likely comparable to only one other person in the show, and that person being Naruto, and possibly Hashirama. And to go along with this basically infinite amount of chakra, Kisame has the physical strength to be able to go up against things like 6th and 7th Gate Might Guy, one of, if not the most physically strong ninja in the Naruto universe, as he's one of the only people who's able to punch so fast and so hard he can light the air on fire. And he's absolutely one of the only people on Earth who's able to kick the air so hard he can fly. And as we get deeper into talking about Kisame's strength, I know there's a couple of you out there looking at your screen and saying,
but he also fought against a 6th Gate guy with only 30% of his power.
while that is kind of something that happened, that's not the most accurate way to describe it. See, well, yes, Nagato is able to take 30% of the chakra from Kisame and Itachi and implant them into human sacrifices, creating perfect clones of Itachi and Kisame. These perfect clones of Itachi and Kisame were not at 30% power of Itachi and Kisame. See, these clones were at 100% power of Itachi and Kisame. However, they only had 30% of the chakra of the originals. So to put this in real life terminology, if these clones were candles based off the original candles, these candles would burn just as bright as the original candles, but they'd only be a third as long. However, in the case of Kisame, if the original candle was, let's say, 10 miles long, a 3.33, repeating of course, mile long candle is still more candle than anybody needs. Now, these clones technically didn't have the ability to replenish their chakra, and thus the candle analogy is actually pretty apt. But with that said, this clone was given Samehada, and therefore, while yes, this iteration of Kisame only had access to 30% of Kisame's original chakra pool, it was 100% a 100% strength Kisame, which was defeated by a 6th Gate guy. But I don't want to sound like I'm being negative about Kisame right now. He is one of, if not the greatest water users in all of Naruto, being able to cover an entire battlefield in an ocean of water with no water source nearby. On top of this, in incredibly sticky situations, he's able to fuse with Samehada, taking on an even more shark-like form. And in this shark-like form, he's not only able to regenerate pretty grievous wounds, but he's also a faster swimmer, and presumably his chakra pool goes up on account of the fact that he's fused with Samehada. And well, some people will tell you that this version of Kisame was able to defeat Killer Bee in combat, which would be a ridiculously impressive feat. It's important to note in this battle between Killer Bee and Kisame, one, Kisame was actually trying to hide inside of Samehada so they could infiltrate the hidden cloud, so he wasn't going all out, and two, Killer Bee was trying to protect a civilian this entire fight. So unfortunately, in the battle where Kisame covers an entire battlefield in an ocean of water, turns himself into a shark, and then swims around real fast, it's not a great metric to measure either Killer Bee or Kisame's strengths. However, unfortunately for Kisame, in serious to the death fights, his track record isn't that great. See, because, well, yes, Kisame without Samehada does fight against a 7th Gate guy. One, Guy is preoccupied this entire fight as he's trying to destroy the shark that has a scroll of information about the hidden cloud and what their plans are for the 4th Great Shinobi World War. And two, 7th Gate Guy absolutely whoops Kisame. And it is not a long fight, and Might Guy beats Kisame in an ocean. Oh, but if Kisame didn't have Samehada, it probably wouldn't have helped if he did. One, Might Guy doesn't get hit in this battle, so Samehada wouldn't be able to cipher off his chakra. And two, Might Guy doesn't use chakra-based attacks. In fact, this is why Kisame loses that fight in the first place, because he's anticipating on swallowing up the chakra-based attack of Might Guy. But when Might Guy opens his 7th gate and uses Evening Tiger, well, Kisame realizes it's not a chakra construct, and thus he gets absolutely worked. So it's not like Kisame loses his chakra absorption ability without Samehada. kata. So a lot of people out there will espouse the idea that Kisame is equal to a 7th gate guy. That's not the case at all. In fact, he's probably not even equal to a 6th gate guy, as technically a 6th gate guy also defeated a full-strength Kisame. But still, he's absurdly powerful. Now, next up after Kisame, in terms of people whose strength we have to consider from weakest to strongest, we have Itachi. Now, it's important to note here that we are only considering alive Itachi. It was alive Itachi that said if he and Kisame fought against Jiraiya, they would lose. So I'm not going to consider Edo Tensei Itachi in this fight. Edo Tensei Itachi is way stronger than alive Itachi. And considering that form for him would be kind of a dick move to Jiraiya, considering the fact that Jiraiya was very purposely not brought back in the 4th Great Shinobi World War, and therefore never got an Edo Tensei form. But because of this, any and all feats done by Edo Tensei Itachi will also not be considered. So what did Itachi accomplish while he was alive? Well, he fought against Jiraiya, and even though Jiraiya captured him in the toad stomach, something that Jiraiya believed was impossible to break out of, and therefore Jiraiya believed that he achieved a win state, Itachi was able to display to Jiraiya something that Jiraiya had never seen in his 50+ years of living, which was somebody escaping the toad stomach, which Itachi was able to accomplish by burning away the side of the toad stomach using Amaterasu. Now, this is rather interesting because this one moment right here actually erases a win con for Jiraiya. It also means the idea of being able to separate Kisame and Itachi using the toad stomach actually probably wouldn't work for Jiraiya. So when it comes down to it, Jiraiya would probably have to fight against the two of them simultaneously. Now, there are other iterations of the toad stomach ability that we see used by Jiraiya in his battle against Nagato that appear as, rather than just filling a space with the toad stomach, actually show Jiraiya teleporting himself to a very separate location that exists as a pseudo pocket dimension. We see him doing this multiple times in the battle against Nagato, but the most notable time is when he uses it against the animal path, killing the animal path in this pseudo pocket dimension and then throwing the body into the stomach acid, ensuring that the animal path cannot be brought back using the King of Hell. So there is still ways that Jiraiya would be able to separate Itachi and Kisame. Moving immediately back to Itachi, Itachi was also able to, while alive, pseudo defeat a perfect Jinchuriki in Yagura, the 4th Mizukage, blasting his version 2 Jinchuriki cloak with Amaterasu and forcing Yagura to retreat. And it was most likely the events of this battle that led to Yagura's eventual demise. On top of this, he also defeated Orochimaru twice. But the only problem with that is that neither of these battles against Orochimaru were really fights. See, obviously when Orochimaru gets assigned as Itachi's partner and then takes the first moment they're alone to try and take over Itachi's body, Itachi is able to reverse this technique back onto Orochimaru using his Sharingan Genjutsu, which Orochimaru is able to break out of by breaking their own finger and slithering away. That's not really a fight. It shows that Itachi is able to place Orochimaru, who's well known for being absolutely ridiculous with chakra control, under Genjutsu, which is a crazy feat, but that's not really a fight. And on top of this, when Orochimaru popped out of the curse mark on Sasuke's neck and appeared as an 8-headed dragon, Itachi was able to, with his Susanoo, stab through Orochimaru's body with the sword of Totsuka and seal Orochimaru away immediately, stripping Orochimaru of any and all influence he had over his little brother. And while this was undoubtedly the strongest version of Orochimaru we'd ever seen, Itachi did just kind of stab him with a sword that Orochimaru didn't know he had. But those are excuses. In both of these fights, Orochimaru, who is one of the strongest people in the universe, gets absolutely dog-walked by Itachi. Not to mention that in this very fight where Itachi stabs Orochimaru, Itachi was at his absolute weakest, only keeping himself alive so that he could push Sasuke to the brink, so that Orochimaru would try and capitalize on this opportunity to take over Sasuke's body. And thus Itachi was not only able to defeat a version of Sasuke that defeated Deidara, but was also able to, after defeating that version of Sasuke, defeat the strongest version we've ever seen of Orochimaru. On top of all of this, he was considered an equal by Fugaku, his father. Fugaku of the Wicked Eye, when he was 13 years old, killed all of the fighting women and men of the Uchiha clan in one night by himself, put Konoha's best Genjutsu user in Kurenai under Genjutsu with literally no effort. He placed a pre-perfect Jinchuriki Naruto under Genjutsu, and so much more. However, it is worth noting that since we are considering an alive Itachi here, he's got some pretty massive stamina issues. In every single fight, he has 2 to 3 usages of his MS max. So whether that's Amaterasu, Tsukiyomi, or his Susanoo, he gets 3 and then he's gotta retreat. And in a battle against an almost perfect Sage, that's a very important factor. But now that we're done with Itachi, let's talk about the final person whose strength we need to analyze before we talk about this hypothetical battle. Jiraiya's. Yes, Jiraiya is the most powerful person heading into this fight. I know there's some of you out there who are saying, oh, but Itachi defeated Orochimaru twice in combat, and Jiraiya and Orochimaru are considered equals. Well, once again, I'd like to iterate that all of the battles that Itachi had against Orochimaru weren't really battles. I mean, did you see Orochimaru using Edo Tensei in any of those battles? Did you see him using Manda or Manda 2 or Aoba in any of those battles? The Rashomon Gates, Wind-style breakthrough. Hell, did you even see them trying to use their Sword of Kusanagi? And listen, there's an argument to be made 100% that the only reason we don't see Orochimaru get to use any of that is because Itachi defeats them so handily and so quickly. And honestly, if you feel that way, I really can't even argue with you. But at the same time, it's never necessarily stated that Orochimaru, Tsunade, and Jiraiya are all equal to each other in strength. It's implied, but Tsunade felt the need to drug Jiraiya when she made the decision to go to Orochimaru to fix their arms to bring Dan back to life. This seems to imply that Tsunade understood that Jiraiya stood a fair to good chance in not only stopping her, but also possibly capturing Orochimaru and therefore eliminating any and all possibility she had of ever seeing Dan again. Tie all this into the fact that while Orochimaru was doing scientific experiments and Tsunade was gambling for like 20 years, Jiraiya was accomplishing hundreds of S-ranked missions, being the Shadow Hokage. And while I have no doubt that the legendary Sannin, the original members of the three-way deadlock, were all equal to each other when they fought against Hanzo in the Second Great Shinobi World War, but I would identify that as their pre-peak for all of them, as there is a pretty legitimate basis of argument that Orochimaru, Tsunade, and Jiraiya all got stronger after they battled against one of the strongest men in ninja history. But Jiraiya isn't just insanely powerful. He's also one of the most intelligent people in the entire Naruto universe. I mean, this is a man who interfaced with Amaterasu one time in his entire life and saw that it was able to burn through the wall of his toad stomach. A man who had heard the legends of Amaterasu, a flame so hot that it would burn anybody hit by it to ashes, who simply thought to himself, that's kind of interesting, snagged the black flame, sealed it away to be studied later. He fought against a four-tailed version of Naruto, only with ceiling tags, all the while not trying to kill him because he was his student. And while Naruto was able to tag him with an almost deadly wound, the disadvantage of having to battle against an enemy that powerful, an enemy that was able to push the Deva path with the handicap that he didn't want to injure him, is a ridiculous feat that is not talked about often enough. But he also fought against Konan and Nagato in the Hidden Rain, in their backyard, with the disadvantage that they knew his exact moveset. They knew how he fought, while he knew next to nothing about how these current iterations of Konan and Nagato fought. Yes, was Jiraiya the person who taught Yahiko, Konan, and Nagato how to be ninjas? 100%. But Nagato never used any of the paths of the Rinnegan in front of Jiraiya, and Konan was most definitely not made of paper when Jiraiya was training her. And yet he was able to defeat Konan and 4 of the paths of pain that, mind you, would have been taken out of the battle forever if he understood that simply with the King of Hell, they could all be brought back to life. However, even after they were brought back to life and Jiraiya was injured, having his left arm ripped off, he was able to retreat to his own dimension, kill the animal path once and for all, and while he could have and probably should have retreated, he decided to himself that it was best to confirm what he believed was the true power of how these 6 paths of pain operated, because he, after all, was the spy master of Konoha, and he understood that the information that he could gather from this fight was more important than his own life, and it was that information that allowed for Naruto to later win in battle against Nagato. And therefore, it's not crazy for us to assume that if Jiraiya had access to that info beforehand, he could have won this fight. So now, knowing everything that we currently know about the 3 combatants in this fight, who wins? It's Jiraiya, and it's actually not that close. Jiraiya is a terrible matchup for not only Kisame, but also Itachi. He has a counter for legitimately anything these two could throw at him. See, if we're assuming peak power, within reason, of all 3 combatants, then we need to consider Sage Mode Jiraiya with Ma and Pa fused to his shoulders, Kisame with Samehara, and Itachi alive. I don't know, Itachi on a not so sick day. Here's the thing, Jiraiya being in Sage Mode is so bad for Kisame, it's hard to fully explain. As we learned from all of the battles that Toad sages fought against the 6 paths of pain, if you tried to absorb Toad's Senjutsu chakra without mixing it with your own at the proper balancing, you turn to stone. We saw this happen with the Predapath of the 6 paths of pain time and time again, and thus Samehada's chakra absorption ability would work against against Kisame and Samehada, almost definitely turning both of them to stone almost immediately. See, here's the thing. We know Samehada is a chakra glutton that passively absorbs chakra from open wounds. So you can't even make the argument that Samehada wouldn't try to absorb Jiraiya's Toad Senjutsu chakra. And as Samehada feeds chakra to Kisame, it would turn both of them into stone. Kisame is out of this fight faster than he enters it. Like, when I tell you he's actually a legitimate non-factor in this fight, I mean it. But even if you did want to consider Kisame as part of this fight, Demonic Toad Confrontation Chant is killing Kisame expeditiously. Kisame's biggest weakness is Genjutsu. Taijutsu isn't a good idea against Kisame because he has a ridiculous chakra pool, he has a sword made out of shark skin that can slice you into a million ribbons, and the second you get sliced into a million ribbons, that sword starts passively consuming all of your chakra. This is why my guy is always using long-range options against Kisame. He's punching the air and turning it into fire, he's using his Evening Tiger, and obviously, ninjutsu is also a really bad idea against Kisame, either with Samehada or without Samehada. And thus Kisame's one weakness is Genjutsu. This is why Kisame so openly admits that Itachi is the stronger of their duo. See, because while Kisame has an insane amount of chakra, his chakra control is never talked about as being anything even remotely special. And as Genjutsu is all about who has the greater chakra control of either the person casting the Genjutsu or the person having the Genjutsu cast on them, Jiraiya, who albeit is not a perfect sage, but is still pretty close to being a perfect sage, has way better chakra control than Kisame. The Demonic Toad Confrontation Chant is killing Kisame. On top of this, all of Jiraiya's Toad summons ridiculously proficient in the water, and all ridiculously proficient water style users. So Kisame's biggest strength, which is his water release, is pretty much nullified by Jiraiya's summons. Like I said, Kisame non-factor in this fight. And Itachi only has one win state, and that one win state is Tsukiyomi. See, as we all know, Amaterasu can be dodged, and Jiraiya is absolutely dodging Amaterasu, especially in Sage Mode. With the movement boost conveyed by Sage Mode and Froggy Kumite, Amaterasu is getting nowhere near Jiraiya. On top of this, there's no way that he's sealed by the Sword of Totsuka. Nagato, as in Edo Tensei Reincarnation, is only sealed by the Sword of Totsuka because he's battling against KCM1 Naruto, Killer Bee, and a revived Itachi simultaneously, and Itachi's able to capitalize on the fact that the combined firepower of KCM1 Naruto, Killer Bee, and himself was enough to destroy Chibaku Tensei, throwing Nagato off and creating a massive dust cloud that Itachi was able to stab through. The Orochimaru just made themselves a massive target for Itachi's Totsuka blade, which Orochimaru didn't even know he had. Now, it's also worth noting that Jiraiya doesn't have a lot of offensive abilities that be able to punch through Itachi's Susanoo, with really his best chance at punching through the Susanoo being his Boiler Toad, which have been shown to destroy some of the biggest summons we've ever seen in the Naruto universe. But Jiraiya doesn't necessarily have to defeat Itachi's Susanoo, he just has to outlast it, which isn't hard. See, all of Jiraiya's Toad summonings are not only massive, much larger than Itachi's Susanoo, but also incredibly practiced Kenjutsu users. And therefore, if Itachi went big, i.e. his Susanoo, Jiraiya could just as easily send his Toad summonings to battle against Itachi's Susanoo until he gave in and ran out of chakra. On top of this, if things ever do get hairy for Jiraiya, he has his separated Toad stomach pocket dimension that he can either split Itachi and Kisame into to fight a 1v1 or simply just go to recover. And thus, like I said earlier, the only way that Itachi wins this battle is Tsukiyomi. Tsukiyomi that, mind you, almost definitely would not catch Jiraiya. See, I'm not gonna sit here and say that Demonic Toad Confrontation Chant would work on Itachi. It might. I mean, it makes sense that if it works on the Paths of Pain, who are all Rinnegan users, it would work on Itachi, but I'm not gonna assume that. I don't know if Itachi's level of chakra control is greater than the Paths of Pain, but I know there is absolutely no reason that Jiraiya would ever be placed under Tsukiyomi. See, because in Jiraiya's battle against the 6 Paths of Pain, the first path that he fights is the Animal Path, and when the Animal Path uses its chameleon summoning to turn invisible, Jiraiya erects a dome around himself of chakra. A dome that allows for him in a rather large radius to detect any movement, allowing him to understand exactly what an invisible foe might be doing. Ties into the boosted sensory abilities of a sage, and there's really no reason for Jiraiya to be fighting with his eyes open in a battle against Itachi. He basically has access to N from Hunter x Hunter, and he 100% knows to not look Itachi in the eyes. So who wins in this fight? Jiraiya. Now listen, I'm not gonna say that Jiraiya comes out of this battle unscathed. I'm not even gonna say that he wins this fight easily, but it's not as high diff as a lot of people think. It's mid diff at best. Like, I really cannot emphasize how little of an impact Kisame has on this fight. And while Jiraiya and Itachi are close to each other in terms of combat ability, Jiraiya's massive chakra pool just means he's gonna outlast Itachi. So do I think Itachi was lying when he said that if Itachi and Kisame fought against Jiraiya, they would die? No. While yes, it was absolutely better for Konoha that the fight didn't take place in the first place, the reason it was better for Konoha was so that Konoha didn't lose an asset in Itachi. But I'm curious to hear from you guys. In this hypothetical fight, who do you have coming out victorious? Tell me in the comments below, and while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. Like, you need to realize, like, Kisame is adding like 1.5% of power over a scale of 100 to Itachi in this fight. He has the worst kit to fight against Jiraiya.